from the J.C. Newman Cigar Studio in Boston, Massachusetts, and the Gurkha Cigar Studio in beautiful British Columbia. Welcome to the Smokin Tabacco Show with your hosts, Matt Tobacco and Mitchell Santaga.
And good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of the Smokin Tabacco Show. My name is Matt Tobacco from SmokinTobacco.com, and I'm joined once again by my very good friend, Mr. Mitchell Santaga, in beautiful British Columbia in the Gurkha Cigar Studios, also of SmokinTobacco.com. Mitchell, how are you? I see you. You pulled out some stops tonight. Look at you. And you're muted, buddy. They can't hear you. Uh-oh. You see the look of panic on your face. I might have to bring the guest in because apparently we can't hear you. I don't know what's going on. Well, all right. Let's see if Michael's ready. I don't know what's going on there. Hey, Mike.
What's up?
I don't know what happened to Mitchell, but we lost his sound, so I'm like, I might as well just bring him right in.
you had me muted. Let's see if he's back.
I had you muted?
Hey, there we go.
There we go.
There we go.
Hey, I
There we
pressed
go.
unmute like 3 or 4 times, and it wouldn't unmute me. It kept saying muted on my screen, even though on mine it said unmute.
That's so weird. I don't know what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you unmuted me, I think it unmuted him.
Yeah.
But you know what? We're in. No one's
Now
muted.
we're here.
Now it's a show.
Now it's a show.
Yeah, beautiful British Columbia.
Yeah, without further ado, I've kind of botched the intro now because of that. But anyway, we got Michael Herklots with us tonight. If you haven't figured that out, if you don't know who he is, Google him and you'll find out. But no, he is the part owner of Ferio Tego cigars. You may have heard of them. Ferio Tego, it's a story. It's a lifetime. It means I strike, I defend. It's the Herklots family crest and motto. It's all Ferio Tego tonight, and we're smoking the new Ferio Tego Summa. But, Michael, welcome back to the show. Mitchell, I see that you, for the occasion, have put yourself together quite nicely, I should say.
Just a little button up and quick little blazer,
I had the full intentions of joining you in a button-up and blazer, and the day got the best of me, and here I am in a blue T-shirt and a denim shirt. Sorry.
Still looking great.
I mean, I'm wearing the same shirt I always wear. This is my show shirt. This is my Diamond Crown Guybera.
Yeah, you're on brand, bro.
That I always wear, except for, and Mitchell, you weren't on Spare Notes last weekend, but last weekend, Kevin, Coop, and myself decided it was Hawaiian night, and we all rocked the Hawaiian shirts, and it was glorious. And I gotta say, I was really digging that vibe. Mike, I know you're no stranger to Hawaiian shirts. You rocked one at the last luau last year.
I
Great
have
Smoke.
one Hawaiian shirt. I have only wore it once, and it will likely stay that way for all eternity until there is another great luau, great smoke, in which case I will resurrect the Hawaiian shirt from the closet.
Are you hosting the Year of the Dragon Great Smoke next year as well?
Yeah, sure.
You are? Okay. Well, I'm curious to see what do you pull out for Year of the Dragon. That's quite the event.
Yeah, that would be cool.
I've been looking.
Red
there's
suit?
Some scary options.
Red
There's
suit?
some very scary options. I don't know.
Red tuxedo with the black trim, black shirt, red tie. I think that's going to be cool.
He needs some gold in there, though. That's
that's true.
Traditional, as a half Chinese person, gold and red, very important.
I feel like there has got to be some Chinese formal male something that I could find in.
You know what you do?
Queens.
Get a Mandarin coat.
Ask.
Get a Mandarin coat. There you go.
Oh
That's
yeah,
on
there you go.
I used to sell suits
Those
when I was in
a lot-
high school, so I'm versed on the cuts.
Not a bad idea.
And if anyone could pull it off, I think Michael Herklots could probably pull that off.
Easily.
Dress it up real nice, and actually, you know what? To be fair, Mitchell has been heavily inspired by the Herklots style, and whipped it out a little bit at the trade show, and it was nice. It was nice. Although I have to say, last year, 2022, Oliver Nouveau from United had on this 3-piece like cream suit. And I was like, damn, I think I even said it. I was like, I don't know. There's only one guy here that might give you a run for your money, and that's Oliver Nouveau. I mean, he was looking good.
He can take it.
It's tight. It's tight. You're always the most well dressed guy at the show. I mean, you pull it out, but I don't know.
A lot of
He
people
almost took
address
it from you.
this. I think it's great, especially after COVID. It's nice to put on a collared shirt, put on a jacket, polish your shoes, and polish up, man. I think it's good for us to do that. It adds a level of formality to our business that once in a while I think we could use.
Absolutely, absolutely. Um, Anyway, before we get too deep into the conversation, I have to back up a little bit because I almost forgot about Two Guys. Our friends at twoguyscigars.com. Mike, I know you know about them. Mitchell, you obviously know about them. It's our Cigars of the Evening, brought to you by the number 2 guyscigars.com. That's right, the number 2 guyscigars.com. You head over there now and you can find all the cigars from Ferio Tego, as well as hundreds and hundreds of other cigars and cigar accessories from the cigar industry. An amazing selection, and it's only at the number 2 guyscigars.com. Head over there now. Well, actually, not now, but after the show. But get your ass over there.
Unless you have 2 devices, and then go ahead.
Yeah, the multitask.
Open up a couple tabs.
Order your Ferio Tegos now while you watch Michael talk about them on the show. Mike, are you smoking the Summa with us too?
I am joining you in a Summa Torpedo. We're all smoking the same.
We're going to make this very easy. We're all smoking the new Ferio Tego Summa Torpedo. Look, these just launched. We saw them at the trade show. And then I think, did they ship before or right after? They shipped.
They started shipping the week before.
Okay, all right. So, but either way, they've been out for about a month now. So,
yep.
And this is not a limited run, if I remember correctly,
No, sir.
right?
This is a core line, 4 sizes, made in Dominican Republic with the Quesadas, as all of our Dominican-made cigars are made with the Quesada family. It's a hell of a blend. It's an Ecuador Corojo wrapper, Ecuador Sumatra binder, Nicaragua and Dominican filler, and it's just, we worked really hard on this blend. It was part of the blend development from the very beginning. So this is a couple years in the works, perfecting it and tweaking it and really getting it right. And I think, and I'm not just saying this because the feedback has been pretty consistent. It is compelling from the first puff. There is flavor that is obvious at the first puff, which is compelling enough to invite you to take another puff. I'm not a believer in you have to get through the first inch before you can level some sort of a assessment. I really believe there has to be something meaningfully delicious from the moment you light it up, and I think this one really hits home in that front.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. The first one I smoked, I don't know if it didn't rest long enough. I did smoke it kind of fresh into my house. It felt a little unbalanced or something. But then I smoked it again, and now I'm smoking it now for the 3rd time, and it's much different. I think it's safe to say that first one, I don't know, maybe it was just from travel, maybe it was dry, maybe it was too wet. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean those cigars went on a long trip. If you brought it home from Vegas to Massachusetts and they went Florida to Vegas, that's a lot of trauma for that little cigar to deal with.
Oh, 100%.
So I'm glad they're rested and performing better.
Yeah, no, and I would say once they did, they've changed and they are a lot better. And I have to say, I think so far, the Torpedo, I really like this Torpedo. I really do. I think that's my favorite so far. It's a great size too, and it's a Vitola that I generally do like to smoke, but for some reason I don't smoke as many as I'd like to. So finding a great cigar in that size is kind of a big deal to me because it'll help me kind of remember to I should smoke more of this Vitola because I like the way they perform. I like the way they burn. I like the way they smoke. When that Torpedo tip comes down to it dramatically can change Vitola from Vitola, the entire smoking experience. As you know, cigars are all blended, so to speak, roughly within different sizes. I love the way this one performs, and I really like this blend in this size the best so far. Now this is the Summa is the first core line Ferio Tego cigar that you have. I know that we've seen Generoso and Elegancia, but those have been annual releases, and if I remember correctly, those will once again come back for 2023 as well, and so on into the future.
Absolutely. The idea ultimately, Elegancia and Generoso will hopefully be as evergreen as Summa. The real distinction is with Summa, like Timeless and Metropolitan, and most traditional core lines in our industry, these cigars are blended and reblended with each production to make sure that it replicates the very last production. And so that means that it is always consistent every single time you pick up a core blend, assuming everyone's doing their jobs correctly. With Elegancia and Generoso, we do not blend to the last production. With Elegancia and Generoso, we make them from scratch based on the original 2021 style and goal, but without testing it to the production before. And that just allows for this sort of revisit every year to try. It's almost like going back into the studio and re-recording the same song every time, trying to play it the best you can. The tune is the same. That's different than reissuing the album, which is really what we're doing with Core. You're reissuing that album. This, Elegante and Generoso, we go back in the studio and we re-record every single year to try and make it the best. So
Now,
yes, Summa, Core.
with Generoso and Elegancia, are you also mimicking, like, say, the wine industry in terms of they use vintages and grapes? Are you using same vintages relative to years with your tobacco leaves, or is it totally arbitrary and you just come in with a feeling and whatever you can pull from, you're pulling from?
Yeah, the vintage for Elegancia and Generoso is relevant only to the date that it was produced.
Okay.
The vintages of the individual tobaccos that make up each blend will change every year, like Core, because you have to go to the pantry and see what do you have that is going to be the best expression of that particular experience.
All right, yeah, that makes sense.
You know, Mike, when I wanted to, one of the things I wanted to do, and unfortunately I wasn't able to put it together, but I wanted to do like kind of a pairing with this cigar. Mitchell and I have been kind of getting into that lately and doing more and more of that on the show. We just did one with Michael Capellini from Toscano, and we're going to be doing another one soon. And I think I had talked to you last year. I wanted to do a wine show. We just haven't really put that together yet.
Yeah.
But when it comes to this cigar, what would be the best pairing with it?
Arguably whatever's closest, but if you
Always.
have a little more discretion and time, you used the word pairing. Pairing for me is such an important word because it speaks to the action of taking two things that independently are meant to be consumed alone and be perfectly balanced alone. And you take those two things and put them together in a way that makes the combination of the two better than either one by itself. And so I find that to be a difficult thing to achieve with high alcohol spirits because high alcohol spirits, particularly neat, tend to just overpower and dominate any nuance or delicate note within a cigar. And so high alcohol spirits tend to replace the flavor rather than pair with the flavor. So I love wine with cigars, no different than wine with food. The lower alcohol is a much more favorable pairing to something as nuanced and subtle as a handmade premium cigar. So I happen to love wine with cigars anyway. With Summa specifically, it's so fudgy and decadent. The weight is so big, it's almost fatty. And so it kind of plays the role that a steak would play in a pairing. And so I would pair the Summa the way you would pair a great steak in a restaurant. So there's a very high degree of fat in most steaks. Typically, you pair that with an older world wine, something with a touch of tannin, a bit more acid, because that counters a bit of the fat. If you notice with Summa, it's rather saliva inducing. Um, so that sort of unctuousness of a fatty steak, no different than the unctuousness of this very fudgy decadent blend, would benefit from something that would help balance that fattiness, for lack of a better descriptor. And wine really does that, and you could do that red or white for that matter. And I'm
Yeah.
doing it with beer for the moment, and then I have a nice Pinot that I'm going to have in a moment.
Is that beer in a wine glass? Wow, look at you.
Yeah, well, this isn't meant to be total snobbery.
Cheers.
I just didn't really want to bring out 2 glasses to the office. But I will tell you, the reason you drink wine in stemware is, number one, the bowl of the glass plays an important role. Anything with aromatics, you want to be able to keep that enveloped in the bowl itself.
Right.
This happens to be an IPA, so it benefits from this shaped glass. And the second reason you drink wine out of stemware is to keep the temperature of the wine the way it was. If you're holding it in your hand, you're warming the wine in the glass. Well, I don't like warm beer any more than I like warm wine. So to me, I think a stem glass for an IPA, why not? Tell me I'm wrong.
Perfect.
No,
Perfect.
I'll never tell you you're wrong. I mean, you have this way about you. You really know how to sell it. Let me tell you.
I've gone with a 2020 local BC wine. It's a Merlot. I haven't really explored too much into the wine, but so far it's pairing really well. It's definitely bringing out a tiny bit more sweetness in the cigar, and it is taming the body of the cigar a bit. And then when you retro it as well after drinking, retroing the cigar, that is where I'm finding a bit of that complexity of like pepper and a little bit of leather and that earthiness coming out paired with the wine. But yeah,
There is some nice earthiness in this, and it's funny you mentioned leather. I definitely get a lot of that leathery, not like a how do you say it? It's very leathery, but it's also got like this. You know what? It's what I had a conversation with Brooks Whittington from Half Wheel at the trade show, and we talked a lot about flavors, and we were talking about reviews, and one of the things we talked a lot about was leather tack, and that's something that we talked about this for like 15 minutes, and it's something that he really explained to me as growing up in the South and being around leathers and saddles and stuff like that. Like he really knew that aroma and that just that taste or whatever, and it was very specific. And while I've never actually, I mean, I think I have, but not enough to really remember. It's kind of what I think. I think that's what that is. It's a leathery taste, but it's a little bit different than what I normally taste, and it's actually quite nice. It's almost like a heavier but refined leather taste, with like a soft, peppery undertone on the finish, for me, and it's quite enjoyable. The thing about this that I really enjoy, and I'm about 3/4 of an inch in, almost an inch, is I like how there's a lot of flavor even right out of the gate, but it's very polished. And while there's a lot of flavor, it doesn't come across as being too much or too heavy or over the top or just too much in your mouth, or it's too much to enjoy, or it's too much to pull out from. It's just right, There's a lot going on here.
It's so critical, and it's something that I work on with every blend that I've ever made. I don't want there to ever be too much of anything. There are so many cigars that can leave someone exhausted, whether it's strength, whether it's and one overwhelming note, whether it's too drying or astringent. I'm just not a believer in too much of anything. I really strive for balance and body. I want a body that's full and rich and mouth-filling. I want balance of strength, flavor, and aroma. Obviously, good combustion, and then you play with the flavors depending on whether you want something toastier, whether you want something nuttier, whether you want something fuller, darker.
And it's funny, you brought up something there, and it reminded me of something I wanted to ask you tonight. You were recently doing an event in Ohio, and you were with our other counterpart, Kevin Acuff, and I know that you guys were smoking Summa at an event there, and he had mentioned to me that one of the things you guys talked about was you spent a lot of time on combustion and draw with this cigar. And one of the first few times I smoked it, one of the things, because Kevin had said to me, like, hey, what do you think? And the first thing out of my mouth was, wow, yeah, the combustion and the burn on this cigar are almost near perfect. Like, not too loose, but, nowhere near tight. It was just right. It was just right, and it performed excellent. And because of that, it also burned nice. It burned evenly. It didn't burn too hot. I will say, it's very, very good on that draw and combustion on this cigar. Excellent, I would say. It's excellent.
The other thing that Kevin and I talked a lot about was the time I spent with each format.
Mm-hmm.
And the only one I had on me that night was a 60. And I know he's not a huge fan of 60s. I'm not a huge fan of 60s as far as what I go to reach for on a daily basis. But of all of them, the 60 took additional weeks of tweaking to get right. And it really is a delicious cigar. The thing that you have to remember, or I think the thing that is important to remember, is we talk a lot about the three major components: wrapper, binder, filler. But the fourth component is air. And the fatter a cigar is, the more instrumental air becomes as a dominating ingredient in the blend besides just wrapper, binder, filler. And so there has to be some level of discretion when you're translating a blend to a 60 to make sure that you take account of the amount of air that is moving into the blend and potentially diluting its intensity and nuance. And so with the 60 especially, and with the Torpedo, that took a great deal more work than the 50 that we initially blended it in, and then the 46 that it's also offered in.
Yeah, and it's funny, we've talked a little bit about the larger ring gauges, and I would say 60 is definitely part of the larger sanctum. But yeah, we've talked a lot about that, and it's funny because I remember, and I was actually a little surprised to see you come out with a 60 because I feel like 3 or 4 years ago, the 60 was, I mean, maybe this was just me, but I remember smoking a lot of 60s, like 2019, like right before the pandemic started, and then kind of like through it. I just remember 60s being like, there was a lot of them, I was smoking a lot of them, and then all of a sudden, they just kind of, for me, it just kind of stopped, and I moved on from it. And still seeing a good amount of 60s coming out there, and I don't know, I didn't really see you coming out with a 60.
I mean, arguably 60s are the second to third largest volume Vitola in the industry.
Yeah.
6x50 really is number one. Then you could argue Robusto Churchill 6x60 is number two, because they're all pretty close.
Yeah.
But, when I started, it's funny, I have it over on the other side of my room here. But on that trip, I was in a retailer who had this old ring gauge chart like I have that goes from a 26 to a 52. That was the popular spectrum of ring gauges when I started.
Right.
But today, really, if you don't offer a 60 or something close to it, you're leaving out a pretty significant portion of the consumer population who like and favor that north of, let's call it 56, and then up and into even the 70s, which obviously is not my style.
Right.
But 60, it took me some time to get around to appreciating a 60. And most of my appreciation for a 60 is just seeing how much other people appreciate it. And so it's important that when you translate a blend, if you want to be successful, that you don't only make the formats that are important to you, but then you also make the formats that are important to other folks.
Yeah, it's true. You talk to a lot of manufacturers, and it is surprising how much of a demand there really is. I mean, especially with 70s. I mean, I know you're not going to probably go 70, but I mean, I have these conversations with people, like, yeah, like, people are bugging us for 70s all the time. And these are companies that historically have never gone that big.
We're not doing
And
it.
what was that?
Although we actually have in our Metropolitan, we have a 65, which we've had since the 90s.
Yeah. 65 is and even 65, that's an interesting ring
Yeah,
gauge.
I was even gonna say I don't see very many 65s.
Normally you
Yeah,
just
it's
see
really
60 to 70.
yeah, it's
65,
really
that's
interesting
kind of,
how it
yeah.
goes 60, 70, 80, and you don't see that like, oh, what about 64 or 68?
Technically, the Andalusian Bull, I think, is a 64 at its widest part at the bottom,
There you go.
but it's tapered. So
It's not super common.
yeah, but even that, I mean, I believe, if I remember correctly, that's a 64 at its widest part. But yeah, I mean, I have to, off the top of my head, not saying it doesn't exist, I don't know of another 64 ring gauge
I think it's
cigar.
important to make sure that we are being as inclusive as we can with the sizes we make so that everyone that enjoys handmade premium cigars will find a Ferio Tego that they enjoy.
Of course,
So
and
that
you,
goes to 60. But the other thing, to your point, Matt, is you were smoking them a lot, but then you got off of them. Well, that's
mhm.
also because you started smoking them at the tail end of when everyone came out with a 60. And everyone came out with a 60 because nobody had them before. And the only way to diversify, scale, and grow a business in the mid 2000s was to add formats that you didn't have, which were north of 54. So everyone had to go in that direction to grow their brands. Then new brands were coming out, launching in 60s as a core line. So then what did we see next? Lanceros. But Lanceros have been around longer than 60s. The only reason Lanceros regained popularity is because everybody had 50 to 60 to 70. And so the only way they could then scale and grow and diversify their portfolio was to add in 38s and 42s and 46s. And so you came in as those sizes were being restored to popularity. And now you see those filling humidors around the country, and people are launching lines in elegant formats. And what we'll probably see in probably 2026 is a return of 60 ring gauges and up.
Yeah, and it's funny. I've had this conversation, Mitchell. I think you and I have talked about this. I think I've definitely talked about this with Coop on the other show. But um, it's funny. Like, me personally, and I'm sure there's other people, but I go through like different phases of things that I smoke. Whether it's like certain blends, like
Rappers.
certain wrappers. Like, there'll be times when all I want is, really mild Connecticut shade, Dominican made cigars with not a lot of strength to them, and then I need something that's real thick and dense from Nicaragua. Same with sizes. I mean, I went through a whole Lonsdale phase last year for like 3 months where, like, all I smoked was like Lonsdales, some
That's a great
Lanceros.
phase.
I mean, I went through like thin ring gauges for like 3 months last year, like at the end of summer into the fall.
I spent most of my career smoking 38 to 46.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I only started smoking 50s regularly because that's the size that I use to blend.
Mhm.
When I first started learning about blending, the 46 was always the format that was used to blend, at least the factories I worked with,
Right.
because you could blend it down to, a 42 and you could blend it up to, say, a 52 or 54. But now that 60s are so important and 38s are really irrelevant, using a 50 allows me to go down to 42, 46, and up to 60 with a bit more ease.
Now, do you find with like you mentioned the 50 ring gauge, do you find that you have to have a standard length? Like, do you like to go with 6 inches or more Robusto 5 inches, or do you find that doesn't tend to affect the experience as much? Because I know that a lot of your
Of course it
cigars
does.
tend to tell a story, right? There's a beginning, a
Exactly.
middle, and an end. So do you like to choose 5, 6, or 4?
I blend 6 by 50 in every blend I've made since probably 2014. So
Okay.
for the last 10 years, 6 by 50.
Awesome. And in going into Summa, like I know you mentioned this blend has been kind of being worked on since almost the inception of Ferio Tego 2, 3 years now. When you first started blending it, do you just come in with like I've got something in mind in terms of a flavor profile, or do you go, wow, that wrapper really intrigued me. I want to work with that, and you work from there? Or is it a binder or a filler you want to build it around? What
Here's
is
the
like
best way
the
to
initial
answer that.
spark?
When you're trying to create a product, you say to yourself, I need to bring this experience to market. Then you approach blending very deliberately to achieve that goal. And that's how my early years were: 2011, 2012, 2013 with Prestige, Supreme, Sterling. Those were very specific, experience targeted projects that I was creating blends to achieve that goal. But at the same time, um, artistically, it's like keeping a sketchbook.
Yeah.
So if you get a melody in your head, you're gonna write that melody down. If you get lyrics in your head, you're just gonna jot those lyrics down. If you have the hook of a story or a headline or something, you're just gonna put it in a book. And 2 pages later, it's a completely different idea. But you want to keep that kind of creative log going, and then occasionally you go back to the book and you say, I want to finish this song. Like, I'm inspired to go finish this song. That's really how Elegancia, Generoso, Summa, some of the limited editions that I've done were created, because I had the advantage now of a 10-year notebook of just sketches. And so this blend was in the works, not to become Summa, but just it was a blend that I played with and tweaked a little. And then finally it hit this spot that was so good that it was like, let's go finish this song. And then
Yeah.
let's go to the studio and let's record it. And then now what do we call it? And then it became Summa. So it kind of reverse engineers the more you have in your sketchbook.
Now you mentioned kind of blend and then naming. What does Summa mean, and how did it come to this name?
Oh, great question. I was gonna ask that next.
Summa in Latin basically means a synthesis or summary of the body of work to date. So for me, this is meant to really, and not meant to, Summa is a representation of all of the work I've ever done, everything I've learned, everything I've tried. It's it's a culmination of now 12 years of blending and trying new things and working for another company and making blends for them. Now starting my own company and making blends for me. This is this is a summary. If there was one blend that I could say, if you want to understand what Ferio Tego is, smoke this. You're going to understand what we do. And then if you want to go up, smoke Elegancia and Generoso, then you're going to smoke the two trophies within this wheelhouse. If you want to be more accessible, then you smoke within the Timeless collection, and you can smoke a Sterling versus a Panamericana, or a Prestige versus a Supreme, and same with Metropolitan. But if you really want to experience today, August 2023, I've never had a Ferio Tego. What is Ferio Tego? You light up a Summa and you will understand everything that is important to us.
Now, how many people come up to you say, I really love the Summa cigar? How many people call it Summa?
Summa, Sumo. So I don't care what you call it. As long as you have Ferio Tego in front of it and it's in your hand, that means that you bought it. Call it whatever you want.
I'll be honest.
There
When
you
I first saw the story come out, I saw the name, and and I don't know why. The first thing that stuck in my head was, Howard Hughes,
Howard Hughes.
Summa Corp.
Ah, right.
The first thing that popped into my head was that song. I think it's Childish Gambino. Feels like Summer.
Yeah.
It's like
See, that's because
summer.
you're young. Because mine was summer, summer, summertime. But I'm old. So you probably don't even know that song.
DJ
Never
Jazzy Jeff from the Fresh Prince. Come on,
There
man.
you go.
I had that CD growing up in the 90s. Thought I was cool.
I had the cassette.
Now you're just showing your age.
This is what it is.
Oh, man. Well, hey, let's hit our news segment really quickly, and then we'll come right back. Our news is once again brought to you by Micallef Cigars. The Micallef Black... Sorry, where is... There it is. Sorry, I blacked out for a second. The new Micallef Black, rated 91 at SmokinTabacco.com by Kevin Akoff. It is a blackout. Check it out now. You can head over to the number 2 guyscigars.com and you can buy it there. Look at that, 2 in 1. This week, an interesting story. You can read about this on SmokinTabacco.com. The first Cohiba lounge in the United States debuts at the Ritz Carlton Bacara in Santa Barbara. The Ritz-Carlton Bacara, Santa Barbara, and Cohiba Handmade Cigars are pleased to announce the debut of the Cohiba experience at the Bacara, the first of its kind cigar lounge in the U.S. Following a launch event on August 11th, the Cohiba Cigar Lounge will be open to hotel guests, club members, and the public Wednesday through Sunday from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m., overlooking the resort's sprawling grounds and offering breathtaking ocean views. The Cohiba experience is outfitted with hand-painted murals, comfortable seating, fire pits, and a walk-in, cedar-lined humidor set against the backdrop of the hotel's Spanish Mission architecture. An array of masterly crafted cigars from Cohiba and other respected brands come together with curated cocktails and a connoisseur's assortment of fine wine and spirits to create the ultimate coastal cigar experience. Mitchell, did you happen to check the photos on of this lounge? I mean, this is quite the spot. If I'm ever in the area, that's definitely where I'm hanging out. Oh, hold on. Sorry, you were muted. Say that again.
Right. See, yeah, it's a weird.
I don't know.
I
I don't know. It's weird. I can hear you now.
But yes, it is an epic looking spot. Like, I would love to smoke a cigar there. Like, beautiful view. The lounge looks really nice. The humidor looks great. Obviously very Cohiba branded, Cohiba name everywhere, but it's a beautiful hotel to match with a beautiful smoking experience.
Ritz
right?
Carlton.
So,
How can you go wrong?
yeah. How can you go wrong?
I mean, that's a nice spot. But yeah, no, I mean, if you head over to SmokinTabacco.com, you can see some of these photos. I mean, they got the fire tables. There's like a balcony kind of looking patio that's like up above.
I think it looks onto their pool.
It looks over the pool and the ocean.
And then the ocean. Yeah.
They got the palm trees. I mean, this is a cozy spot. I have to just looking at the photos.
I could sit back, light up an Elegancia, and just enjoy the evening. And then after that, maybe a beautiful Generoso.
Look at you staying on point tonight. What can I say? So you know what? All I have to say is Mitchell's he's showing his.
Ty would be up.
Yeah,
Ty would be on.
I know you're excited that Michael's here tonight because you pulled out the outfit. You're on point tonight. I mean, you've already asked more questions tonight than I think you have the last 2 shows. I mean, this is a big moment for you. Mike's a huge inspiration for you,
right?
Huh?
Yeah, of course. And you've got a lot on your plate. I'm trying to ease a little bit for you too.
It's all good. It's all good.
Michael's an easy guy to talk to.
Oh, he is for sure. I mean, he's one of those guys. You just get him going, and he'll keep on going. I mean, maybe not as much as like Steve Saga, but he's definitely easy to talk to. But yeah, if you want to,
a little bit nicer than Steve though.
He doesn't have. Yeah, I don't know what you'd call it, but he's he's got more of that personal charm than Steve. Steve's great, but Steve's also just he's not shy with being a little bit aggressive sometimes, but that's okay too, because I enjoy that. I enjoy those. But if you want to read more about this, and if you want to see some more photos, head over to smokintabacco.com today and you can check it out. And that was once again brought to you by Micallef Cigars, featuring the Micallef Black. All right, let's bring Michael back up here. Where is he? There he is. He's got his I think I saw him right before the bat break. I think I saw him pour his glass of wine, so he's on to round number 2.
I muted myself when you unmuted. I think when you hit mute, it mutes us both. So when you unmuted, I self-muted.
Interesting.
That's strange.
Interesting. It usually doesn't do that.
I know. It's usually very independent. I don't know. Something weird's going on tonight. Something's in the air.
Ferio Tego's in the air, baby.
Whole studio is full of smoke. There it is. Now, we've talked a lot about Summa tonight. Obviously, I mean that's kind of the showcase here. Let's take a quick peek back into Timeless and Metropolitan. Obviously, legacy brands that've been around. Anything new or anything different with those brands from the last year or so that you've worked on as a refresher?
Not in the last year, except for in the Timeless Prestige, we did launch the Especiales.
Yep.
So we did launch a 6 1/4 by 38, beautiful Lancero. Historically, there had been a Lancero in that blend, and it was the format. It's probably the cigar I smoked the most. And
really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Historically, that was always a go-to. That and the Petite Coronas in our lines.
Yep.
Both in the Secreto and the Panamericana, and the number 5 in the Prestige. But when we started Ferio Tego, we thought it was very important to bring all the blends back as quickly as possible, and to lead with the historically best-selling sizes.
Yep.
To make the conversation easy, to make the transactions easy, and to restore these brands back to humidors. And probably no surprise, a 6 1/4 by 38 Lancero is not exactly the league leader of the American market. But it's a blend that I was working on in that size since inception, and so we were finally able to bring that back, which, we underestimated the enthusiasm for that format. And our first shipment, we were hoping would get us through a month or 2 months, and then second shipment would come in, and our first shipment went out in 4 days. So there's a lot more enthusiasm for Lanceros, or maybe more specifically for Timeless Prestige, than perhaps we gave credit to. So the Timeless Prestige Especiales is in market, and I would really encourage you, if you enjoy Lanceros, to go find that blend. It's $11, and it is extraordinary. So that is a new offering, and we'll continue to do some size expansions over the next year to 2 years, and introduce some new formats in those, particularly in the Timeless blends, for sure. Metropolitan, there's no real change, but historically, Metropolitan is not, nor has it ever been a brand that grows by innovation. It's a brand that grows by consistency. And, if you look at the handmade premium cigar market, especially in the United States, historically, brands were what people depended on. Whether it was booze, whether it was tobacco, like whatever it was, you had your brand. And Metropolitan was born in 1994, 1995. So these are blends that people have depended on for almost 30 years. They're blends that grandfathers introduced fathers introduced their sons to, and now grandfathers have introduced their grandsons to. That's how important Metropolitan is to the consumer population of cigar enthusiasts. So for me, when you look at the time spent, and let's face it, not every company dedicates the same amount of time to protecting the old as they do creating the new. But the reality is it's the same amount of time and effort, if not more, to protect and maintain and preserve an experience year after year after year. That's not an easy thing to do at all. And so for a brand like Metropolitan, especially, that has almost 30 years of loyal um, fan base, then my time is better spent making damn sure that every single production of Metropolitan is exactly the same as the last one. And when you look at legacy brands and humidors today, I think you'd be hard pressed to find a brand and a blend that is more consistent over 30 years than the 5 blends of Metropolitan.
Now, in terms of those two brands, other than you mentioned maybe some size expansions in the future, but those brands will pretty much remain untouched for the most part.
Well, who knows? I mean, you know, I don't have a crystal ball here. The blends as they exist today will remain unchanged from an experiential standpoint. The sizes that are winning today will remain unchanged. But, I mean, no different than looking how brands and the portfolios of brands have evolved. Should at some point the 65 ring gauge all of a sudden become obsolete because everyone just stops enjoying them, we won't continue to keep it just to keep it. Today, the sizes that we've launched with are all equally successful and in demand. So I don't see a material change to any of Metropolitan or Timeless at this point. The only thing I would see changing would be additions, not takeaways.
Well, maybe I should have asked it this way, but instead of maybe spending more time on continuing to add to those brands, I would assume that there's, at least for the foreseeable future, there's a lot more of a focus on expanding the Ferio Tego brands, adding more core to Ferio Tego, and in addition to the Elegancia and the Generoso, which are kind of annual releases. You have the Summa, but I guess what I meant to ask was, is there more of a focus on creating more core line products under just the Ferio Tego name alongside Summa, versus focusing more time on, obviously expanding on those legacy brands?
I think the way you're asking the question, forgive me for saying it this way.
No, it's okay. I fucked it up in the beginning. I'll just say it.
No. But we're flipping the why. I mean, if there's one consistent message that we've talked about for years, it is that I feel strongly that you bring something to market when there is a clear opening for need. There must be a why as to why you bring something to market. So at this point, Ferio Tego needed a core to anchor and help better tell the story. Needed a core to better tell the story more thoughtfully. And so now we have Elegancia and Generoso and Summa.
Okay.
Does Ferio Tego need another core line next year? I don't know the answer to that question. I think that's what we have to learn over time. But I can't divorce our business plan from the reality of what the business needs. And we're learning that every single day. And I think it's painfully obvious when you see companies launching new things for the sole purpose of launching new things. And I think that suggests that the old things are done. And I'm not into that. Look, I'm a blue chip stock guy. I am not a crypto guy. I don't believe that this thing I bought yesterday has no liquidity tomorrow. I think that is the most ridiculous, crazy. I just can't get my mind around it. I know it's successful. I know people make a ton of money with it. People made a ton of money in crypto. People make a ton of money in the cigar business by just constantly launching new. But I fear for Ferio Tego that new liquidates the equity that we're trying to build in these brands. So I can't possibly forecast what our brands will need. What I can forecast is that I'm going to continue to keep my sketchbook, and I'm going to continue to develop cool blends and unique projects. And then when the opportunity strikes, a great example of this, Matt, is last year's Great Smoke, when I did a limited edition for Smokin and Red Meat Lovers Club for the night before the Great Smoke. That's a great example of here's an opportunity to bring something new to market. Let's go to the sketchbook. Which of these songs that I've started writing is the right track for the Red Meat Lovers Club dinner? It's this blend. Then I finished that song and put it in that channel and sold it out. That's the perfect example of being able to answer the why and then executing the plan to go do it. And I'll tell you that we are definitely going to continue to do that every year. But I can't necessarily say that we're going to launch a core line at the PCA next year, and then we're going to do a limited edition Metropolitan. We have to make sure that there is a demand for it and that there is a clear lane to launch the product first.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, and I didn't necessarily mean immediately or like within the next show, but kind of maybe more along the lines of a long-term plan for the Ferio Tego cigar brand in itself with the three, and then adding to that.
Ferio Tego in 5 years will certainly be more than Elegancia, Generoso, and 4 sizes of Summa.
Right.
100%. And that work is already being done. The question is when and how and what.
Time will tell.
You mentioned the trade show a bit. I know, you had a very interesting start to the company where I think like your first year at the trade show, you didn't even have cigars. You were just a booth
I remember that.
saying hello.
Best trade show of my career.
Yeah, you probably just got to hang out, smoke all day, and say hi to everyone you loved, right?
That was a quiet trade show too.
We were packed. You remember? You were the first. We were the first interview, the first day, the first minute you walked on the floor. We were right there, and I was like, "Let's just do this right now."
Yep.
And then you were like, "So what are you doing?" I'm like, "I have no samples. I have absolutely nothing. I don't have a price list. I've got zero. I had old blends from 2019 in wrong sizes that I just brought along in case someone wanted to puff on something, but we had nothing, man. It was great. It was so great.
You were so excited too, and I think what you said to me was you were just like, "I'm just here." I was like, "Yeah."
I don't have samples. I don't have price lists. All I have is hugs and stories, and I can tell you my plans. And it was a great start.
It worked out.
It has, yeah. It's been really interesting because even the trade shows moving forward, you've definitely had a very different format compared to other people too. Like I feel like a lot of people, it's very like this is just down to business, sales. Whereas you've definitely encompassed this more feeling of coming together for the trade shows. And like even this year, I think your goal was to just get Summa into people's hands. I heard there was a little bit of a hiccup though. We almost didn't see the cigar on the trade show. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what happened there?
Bro, The cigars did not make it to the holding spot when they were supposed to, and we discovered it on Friday morning in Las Vegas, which means it was already Friday afternoon at the warehouse in Florida. So then we Saturday overnighted product to land in Las Vegas Saturday morning, and the one truck that delivered to the hotel Saturday morning did not have our box that was overnighted for Saturday morning delivery, and they said it just missed the truck, so we'll bring it Monday, which was
Show's almost over.
Show's over. By the grace of God and all miracles and our Davidoff USA team scrambling, that package was delivered first thing Sunday morning to the convention center. And so we had Summas in everyone's hand Sunday, Monday, and half day Tuesday. And it was a huge hit. The feedback, it's the scariest moment when you complete the work and you say, yes, okay, the blend is done. Make it, ship it, we receive it. But no one has tasted it. So there is a warehouse full of Ferio, Tego, Summa. And now is the moment where we have to see if people like the song or not. Like imagine the old days. You print your first run of CDs or albums, but no one's heard it yet. And the last thing you want is a stack of records that you can't sell. The last thing we want is a stack of cigars that the first 4 people are like, nah, it's all right. I mean, that is a serious problem. And thank God, the first person I handed one to at the booth lit it up, and it's a critical person. Lit it up, took 3 puffs, and said, "This is fucking good." And that was like the first full breath I had taken in probably 4 weeks.
Was it Aaron Loomis?
It was not Aaron Loomis. That's
He's critical.
But Aaron would never say it's really good to my face. No, I'm just kidding. He might. But it was met with it was met with exactly the experience that I had with that blend. And I don't get that a lot. Like sometimes I'll think a blend is great and people will smoke it and they'll enjoy it, but their experience with it is different than my experience. With Summa, everyone that I've enjoyed this cigar with, or I've watched enjoy it through reviews or other things, almost without exception, I really can't think of an exception. Everyone has experienced the blend the same way. Compelling from the beginning, rich, fudgy, decadent, complex, and recognizing the story that it tells start to finish. That is very exciting as an artist.
Yeah, and like you said, it's a like almost like a sigh of relief, just like, whew, all right, the work's done and they like it. Good, now I can relax.
And it doesn't always go that way, man. I mean,
oh yeah, for sure.
There are a lot of great blends that I thought were great that were flops, really. I mean, they just didn't go anywhere. And there's lots of other reasons why that could have happened, but that's frustrating when you have such a great blend and it just doesn't hit with people. And that's blend and it's brand and it's marketing and it's packaging and it's sizes and it's pricing and it's all that stuff. But it's the fact that Summa has hit the way it has hit in such a short amount of time is super exciting. We were just featured in Maxim today.
That's right.
I mean, that's not even an industry rag. That's a mainstream publication that reached out to me earlier in the week just asking for information on it and a couple photos. And I was like, well, that's interesting. And then boom, I mean, an unbelievable story in Maxim today. That to me, again, is just that reassurance that the work is good and not everyone is going to get it. Not everyone's going to like it. And that's totally fine. If you're a vegetarian, you're not going to like great steak. If you don't like alcohol, you're not going to like great wine. if you don't like balance and you don't like elegance in blends, you're definitely not going to like Ferio Tego, because we don't do the monstrous full bombs. And so, of course, it's not going to be for everybody. But the fact that it's being recognized and people are truly loving it, that to me is exciting, not just for the success of Summa, but for how that will amplify Elegancia and Generoso, and how it will also reflect down on how great Timeless and Metropolitan are.
So it's so interesting. As someone who you've been blending for quite a while, and I also played music and have been in conjunction with writing music. I find it's. I was wondering, do you find like when writing songs, sometimes you feel like, wow, this is a banger. This is like our greatest song. You record it, you play it live, and like nobody likes it. But as a band, you guys are just like, this is the best song. Like, how does no one love it? And then you write a song that you're just like, oh God, I hate playing this. I hate listening to it. And you play it, and like everybody loves it. And you're just like,
It's usually the song that you write after the hit, after the one that you think is great flops, and
yeah.
it's your like F you to the business. I'm gonna write the worst song I possibly can, and that's the one everyone's like, it's great, and everyone sings it.
Do you find that happens with blending, or it's a it tends to be very different? Because I I don't know, like maybe with blending, depending on how or who you're with, like I think maybe sometimes blending can be exposed to a lot more people before it is onto the market. Whereas, like you said, sometimes a song, it's your band and a producer and maybe a handful of friends. Whereas a blend can be in the hands of, you know, an entire factory with people trying it and smoking alongside friends that you maybe trust in to
But
give you feedback.
isn't that the thing? I mean, that's what an artist really doesn't do. Like you, if you're really making art, the last thing you want to do, whether it's a song or a painting or whatever, is get 50 opinions,
Hmm.
because then you're not. It's not the artist intention. It's
It's not your
groupthink.
vision.
You know what I mean? It's crowdsourcing, which
Yeah.
might work. I guess some brands do that, so that might work in some cases. But the the more this has become my art, the less I'm open to um, opinion until it's done. Like I just want to kind of like I just want to go in the studio and do the work, you
Yeah.
know, and keep it close and keep it tight and be true to the intention of what I want it to be, and not think about being everything to everybody, but just making sure that it's the best it's the best song I can write to date, and record it. And when I listen to it, then it's just hold your breath until it lands and hope people appreciate it for what it is.
Yeah, so I mean, in other words, I mean, you when you're in that process, you know, you don't want that noise, you don't want that distraction. You got something in mind, you got to get in there, you got to make it, fine tune it, get it out, and
Yeah,
then
I
people can say
remember
what they
very
want.
specifically, I was doing a blend. I think it was in Nicaragua. I was doing it with Placencia, and I had been tweaking it, and they had been making it, and we're getting there, and we got down to, I think, 3 finals, and there were only like maybe 3 of us. I had brought a couple guys down with me on this trip to work on this, and so we get all done. We blind smoke everything. We write our reviews. We had all of our criteria, and then we basically show our cards and say, okay, let's rank number 1, number 2, number 3, and we line it all up. And mine lost, and everyone else was in violent agreement on which one was supposed to be the winner. And I remember being paralyzed in the moment because I had invited the opinions and I didn't share in it. And the last thing you want is to go to a vote and then override the vote. You know, then you feel like your voice isn't heard and your participation doesn't matter, and you're, you know, and so I remember thinking, I don't want to put myself in that position again. I'm happy to have people involved just in in the process of making something good, a thought or an idea of how we can tweak it to be something better, but without declaring what the thing might be. Once the target is clear, then the fine tuning of it, I don't invite opinion, which sounds awful. I mean, I can't believe this is going to be like memorialized forever, but I really think
Oh, it's your creative process.
from an artist perspective, you learn together, you practice together, you study together, but then when it comes time to go do your thing, there's only one songwriter, there's only one director, and that's it. And you just have to go with what you believe and pray that people appreciate the work as a one-off piece of work, and also appreciate that piece of work's place in the lexicon of other works that you've done.
Yeah, we have Carl here from Mr. J's in Rhode Island, and shout out to him and to Mr. J's.
That's right by my hometown too, and I love those guys, man. Paul's the best too.
And he said, that leads me to Michael's great quote, cigars are to tobacco what jazz is to music. Misunderstood.
Yeah. Misunderstood by the majority. But when you appreciate this thing that is so misunderstood by the majority, it is the thing that brings us together in a way far more intimate than any other shared hobby. We might all like sports, we'll argue over the team. We might all like food, we'll argue over the restaurant or the cuisine.
Yeah.
But if we all like handmade premium cigars, we're not going to argue over the brand or the blend. We're going to share them. And we're going to spend time together sharing the great work of cigar makers, not moving into camps and saying, "Oh, you're a Robusto guy, I'm a Lancero guy." Like we can't be friends. Like the opposite occurs in premium cigars when that simple thing is the thing that pulls us together.
Yeah, very well said. Very well said. And there's not many, and again, this is another example of just why there's not many industries, lifestyles, whatever you want to call it, whatever label you want to put on communities. There's a lot of adjectives or nouns I could use. That about the cigar industry that's really different from everyone else. I mean, this industry, this group, community, etc. As I said, it's very easy to get people to come together, and it could be over anything really. And it doesn't even have to be about the cigars, but it always brings people together. And there's not a lot that does that. I mean, sure, the right bar with the right drink with the right people, okay. But,
Close.
Again, it doesn't always happen.
It does not always happen. But it always happens with our thing.
It does. It does.
By the way, speaking of friends in the business, shout out to 724. It's my favorite go-to lighter. 724.
Kurt Kendall.
Nice.
That's true. I think you've used that lighter almost on almost every show you've been on with us.
I think he brought that to me when Nat Sherman was closing. He came to see me. And it was middle of pandemic. We were all masked up. He walked around the store one last time. I'm pretty sure that's when he brought me this lighter. And I remember packing up my office and making sure that lighter was there. And it sits in my office, and it's the one I use still. There's like a dozen things in my office at home that were either from my Davidoff office in the early 2000s or from my Nat Sherman office that moved that I still use every day, and that's one of them.
Oh, that's interesting. I mean,
lighter is important.
Well, it is, of course, without the flame,
But the other thing that I think is so important is if you're going to spend time with something, if you're going to spend time with this thing, I have a hard time spending my time and money with a brand that I don't feel connected to in some way. And whether that's a brand that I'm smoking, a wine that I'm drinking, like this wine, this is made by my buddy Chris in Napa Valley. Uh, if I'm gonna spend an hour enjoying a glass of wine, and I could run to the store and buy a bottle, or I could buy a bottle from him, that connection makes the wine more important to me, you know? And so, as silly as it is to use this lighter, and I have timeless lighters running around, but like this is like that daily reminder of Kurt Kendall is a wonderful guy who's working hard just like I am to build his brand and to build his business. And he was thoughtful enough to bring this to me. And so I need to remain thoughtful in what I do every day. You know, like those little reminders I think are so important.
So true. And you're right. And Kurt is a great guy. I mean, he does. He
Oh,
hustles.
the best. He's the best.
You know, one thing I love about Kurt is that
I'd be off air to tell you my favorite Kurt Kendall story.
it's funny. I kind of get that a lot. So
It's totally appropriate. We just don't have the time for it.
yeah. But you know, I mean, he's a great guy. He definitely does hustle, and you know, seeing him at the trade show, you know, trying to grow that brand, you know, and also for me too, like personally, I mean, he's right here in my backyard, so you know, anytime I see the 724 name, for me it's cool because it's like, oh, that's one of my local shops. I know Kurt really well. You know, that's right here in New Hampshire, and it goes back historically.
When there's an interesting balance in brand building between accessibility and whatever the opposite of accessibility is. You have this idea that when things are familiar, it's sometimes difficult to have the same halo of importance as things that feel out of reach, that you have to kind of aspire to go get. And for me, that's a very delicate balance because I've always been accessible. I like being accessible. I want to feel connected. I want people to hear the story and love our brand and follow along. But at the same time, I think that can also be to our detriment because we're so accessible that we're less aspirational, because so many people have heard the story and so many people, you know, I've done events with and spent real one-on-one time with, that it doesn't feel so out of reach that maybe makes the brand feel more important or valuable, or you know, it's just one of those interesting realities with building a brand. But I think Kurt is the same way. But Kurt and I are both cut from retail. And, you know, we like to be with people and we like to say thank you and have that one-on-one personal interaction. It's the thing that made us fall in love with the business first. It wasn't making cigars that we loved first. It was selling cigars and sharing cigars that was our first love, that now has evolved into something bigger and greater.
I think the cigar industry is so unique that way that for me it's one of the only industries that offers that, right? Like someone can smoke a Ferio Tego and one day if you are in the store, you show up and they get to have a one-on-one conversation with you, right? We mentioned like the wines and even whiskeys, like the odds of you ever talking to the guy that makes or distills the whiskey you drink, or the shoe designer of the shoe you make, or almost any product ever, for you to actually have that one-on-one conversation with that person is extremely small. Again, unless you're willing to fly to Kentucky to go to their distillery, and even then you might just get a person working the floor, not even the master distiller. Whereas this industry offers a consumer an experience like that is unlike any other one, where you can sit down, enjoy a product, and then talk to that person who came up with the product and built it from the ground up, and get the nitty gritty and what is behind the product, and you feel so much more connected to it even after you already loved it so much. It's a wonderful thing. It's beyond imaginable. So
I agree. As a retailer for 20 years, it's the thing that I loved the most. Having principals coming in, having cigar makers come in and share their stories and allow people to connect in a much more meaningful, genuine, authentic, tangible way. I think that changes the trajectory of brands and companies. And so for me, that's my approach. And I know it's Kurt's approach. And that just means that we have to travel a lot more and do a lot more of these, but I think it's worth it.
Yeah, sorry. I got caught up in a message. Sorry.
Good.
Everything's good.
Okay.
It's not time. It's not time.
Great.
Don't worry. So we had this, as everybody knows, and I'll say this here. We are Nicole and I. Someone had asked earlier too, so I will address this. As many people know, we are expecting, and we are literally right there at the finish line. We're just kind of waiting for everything to progress, as they say, right? Waiting for it to happen. So, as I told the guys before the show, as I've been saying for the last couple of weeks, like, just a heads up, if I get a message during the show that, hey...
it's time to go. It's time to go.
it's time to go. We need to end the show correctly.
Is your bag packed?
Bags are packed. The car seats
Okay,
are
good.
in. Everything's ready to go. Baby's healthy. Just
Do you have snack bars for yourself?
oh, Michael, I packed a
Okay,
whole
making
snack
sure.
bag. I packed a
Just
whole
making sure.
snack. Oh no, I know. I'm proud of it. I packed a whole
I was
snack
eating
bag.
ice chips I was eating ice chips with my wife for the first one. I completely did that one all wrong.
I got chocolates. I got popcorn. I got chips. I got everything because you know what I thought about it. I go, I could be sitting there with her. I mean, she can't eat. I feel a little bit bad, but hey, I'm going to be sitting there maybe 20-something hours, maybe 3. We don't know, but I got to be prepared. So,
Breath mints and gum.
yeah, that too.
Don't forget that.
And I got pillows and blankets because I know that I'm going to have to make the most out of a lounge chair or just a chair. So,
It's going to be great.
it is. It's going to be great, but it's going to be a journey. And I'm prepared. I've taken all the advice that everyone's given me, and I'm showing.
I'll tell you what, man. From a future father to a current father, people used to say all the time, wait till you have a kid. You'll never understand love until you have a kid. And my cynical self is like, well, obviously. I mean, that makes complete sense.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what really blew my mind was the minute my first was born. Not only did I understand love and fear in a way that I had never experienced it, but it also made me in that instant understand what my parents felt for me and what their parents felt for them. And that was a mind blow for me. That was equally, if not more emotional than just feeling the love for my kid and the love and fear for my wife, but then understanding in that moment how that passes on and how that's consistent. That's, to me, I actually said it once, that is the same unique, misunderstood feeling that you get with this.
Yeah.
So many people don't understand it, and you can't understand it unless you love it. But if you are one who loves it and you share that love with all those people, that's a very, very unique brotherhood. So I'm excited for you, bro.
Thank you.
it's a journey.
I will say, I mean, she's not here yet, but the closer and closer you get, the more you kind of start to understand. I think everything you said is true, and I think that you don't truly, I don't think it'll truly sink in for me until I hold her the first time and I'm like, oh shit, this is my kid.
Totally.
But the closer and closer you get, your mind, I think it's just human nature. It starts to prepare you for what's to come, and you slowly start to understand a little bit more and a little bit more of just kind of everything that's about to come. the meaning behind it, what life will become, everything. And
And no one is qualified to have one.
yeah,
You are qualified the day they arrive, and you do the best you can every day together.
it's going to be a journey, and I'm excited to see how it goes. And it's funny because one of the things I said too is it's one of those. I feel like like having a child is like this unspoken rite of passage with like other adults, because like when I was single, I was a kid. I met Nicole, I got engaged. Wow, that's exciting. That's cool. We got married. It was like, all right, you're married now. That's pretty cool. You're part of that club. But then when people find out you're having a kid, the attitude towards you changes like that, and it's just like, oh, you're having a kid. Oh, and it's like this unsaid connection of like, you're really part of the special club now, and you're not a kid anymore, and it's fucking cool. And you're about to see what that's like, and I'm excited to see what it's like after too, when I actually have a kid, and it
is the single most awesome, in its truest sense of the word, awesome responsibility there is in a person's life. For those who have children, for those who don't, look, there's other things, and I'm not, plenty of people don't have kids, no problem. But for those who do, it changes every priority in an instant, forever.
Yeah, forever, until the day you die.
Forever.
Even when they're adults, they're still going to be
Yep.
your kids. They'll always be with you. Sorry, I needed to take a breath after that. It's been a long day. It's been, and on that note, it's been a long couple of weeks. A couple of close calls. It's exhausting. But Nicole's doing well right now, I should say. So
Good.
that could change in an hour. Who knows? But no, I mean, I'm looking at the time. It's amazing how fast these shows go. We have such a great time on these shows. They fly right by. Mike, first of all, thank you for being here tonight, and thanks you for being on the show and talking with us and talking about Ferio Tego. It's been so exciting to watch this journey unfold. I remember, like we talked about earlier, I remember the first trade show. You had nothing there but the booth, stories, and hugs. And you've come such a long way in those few years. And you've come a long way from the stories and the hugs at the booth to everything that we have here now. And you're killing it. And I just want to say congrats to you on all of your success. You make it look easy, and I know for a fact it's not. I will say that. I know it's not easy. I've begun to watch how the cookie gets made, and I can tell you, man, I couldn't imagine doing that every day. It's a lot of work. So really, congratulations, and thank you for being here tonight. I really appreciate it.
Man, I appreciate you. I appreciate your support, and we've done this dance a long time together since you started. It's been great to also watch your journey. I think part of the fun is when you have we're almost like a school class. We all kind of started close to the same time in this new chapter.
Yeah.
And so it's been fun to watch the success of those who started with me around the same time.
Yeah.
Grow and celebrate their journeys as I celebrate mine. And so every time we get together, whether it's at a trade show or whether it's here, it's kind of one of those stop time moments where it lets you look back and assess how far we've come. And it's funny, it made me think, I gave a speech at my high school. There's a quote. Hang on, I want to find it right now. Hold on. It's going to take me 2 seconds. There's a quote by this guy, Keith Cunningham, and he said, progress should be measured not from the point of, progress should be measured from the point of origin, not proximity to the destination. And that quote has stuck with me from the moment I heard it. Progress should be measured from the point of origin, not proximity to destination. And when we get together, show floor here, it's one of those resets when I think back to the first time we got together and the checks in that we've had since. And I think we both have a lot to be proud of. So here's to your success and your future. And I appreciate all the support, really.
Thank you, Michael. That's very nice of you to say. That's really nice of you to say. And you're right. We did kind of start around the same time, and it has been. It's been a journey. And it's only been 3 years, ish, maybe a little more.
Yeah.
About. So it doesn't seem like a lot of time, but when you start to look back and you think about everything that's been done, you're like, shit, that is a long time. It's crazy. It really is. It's crazy. But yeah, loving it every step of the way. It's not always easy, and there's not always great days, but
It shouldn't be.
but there's bad days too. But you keep on going, and you persevere, and you're here, and we just keep growing, keep going up.
The stuff that's most meaningful to you is the stuff that you work the hardest for.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And I've definitely had a lot of those moments where I stop and go, shit, I can't believe we did that. That's a big deal. Or, wow, I can't believe we made it.
It was easy, everyone would do it, bro.
It's true. It's true. If it was easy, everyone would. And, you just stick with it. Don't give up. That's what I always tell people. Just stick with it. You can't let anything knock you down. But, hey, that's going to be our show for this week. Once again, Michael, thank you for being here. Guys, don't forget to head over to smokintabacco.com for more news, reviews, our PCA 2023 coverage, also our JC Newman Vintage Ashtray giveaway. Winners have been announced. You can find the winners on smokintabacco.com. And as always, don't forget to like and subscribe everywhere you can listen to your podcast. We're on all of the podcast platforms as well as YouTube and on social media. We'll see you guys next week with Jose Blanco, and we will keep it lit in the meantime. Take care, guys.
Ferio, Tego.